Hello, my name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and welcome to another episode of our Driving Tomorrow Conversations with Industry Leaders, where we explore the latest developments and newest innovations in the world of artificial intelligence. Today, I'm excited to speak with Patrick McAndrew, the Member Engagement and Community Manager at the Responsible AI Institute. With a deep passion for the future of technology and its ethical implications, Patrick has dedicated his career to building communities and content around responsible AI practices. At the Responsible AI Institute, he plays a pivotal role in guiding organizations through the complexities of AI governance and the fostering collaboration across diverse sectors. In today's interview, we will explore the challenges of AI regulation, the impact of responsible AI assessments, and the importance of cross sector collaboration in advancing responsible AI. Thank you for joining us today, Patrick.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. You've had an extensive experience in creating and fostering communities. How do you approach building a community around responsible AI? And what strategies have you found more effective in engaging members from diverse sectors across like industry, government, and academia?
Alicia, that is a really good question. I really believe that at the core of responsible AI, it's all about preserving humanity. It's about protecting people's human rights, their privacy. And when we're implementing AI responsibly, we're helping people
Yeah.
instead of hurting people. And
Mhm.
so my philosophy is that because humanity is so central to our approach with responsible AI, that community must also be central to the work that we're
Mm.
doing as well. And here at the Institute, we've been in the process of figuring out, okay, what's the best methodology for implementing community as it relates to responsible AI? And
Mhm.
personally, I believe that bringing our member organizations together to talk about these issues is a really great opportunity to figure out what's working well for them in the AI governance practices, what isn't working well. And having this type of dialogue is incredibly essential. At the end of the day, we learn from each other. And we're really, this is such a new space. We're all really just trying to figure this out. When
Yeah.
we bring people together from industry, government, academia, as you had just mentioned before. That sort of momentum and synergy when it comes to communication and conversation, I believe really creates a lasting change. So that's what we're trying to do and accomplish at the Institute right now is bringing people together online that alone has already been huge for us. But we're really hoping down the road also to discover opportunities where we can bring people together in person as well.
I suspect the collaboration, like you were saying, is so helpful because when you're on your own, you don't know what you don't know. And by talking with other people and seeing what they're doing, expect that it would give you some ideas and just help out everybody. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned before, we're all figuring this out together. And
Yeah.
so the more people that are able to come together and talk and have these important conversations, I think the better off we'll be in the long run.
I agree. Yeah. And as a content creator and producer, your storytelling is central to your work. How do you use storytelling to communicate the importance of responsible AI, and why is it crucial in driving the message across the different audiences?
Yes, I love this question. This is such a good question. Storytelling has really been the bread and butter of my career and has been central specifically to myself and my work for some time now. I've worked in the entertainment industry in a variety of capacities, and time again, I've recognized that the power of story, it really has this power to capture attention. And
Yeah.
perhaps more importantly than that ability to capture attention, it also has the ability to grab hold of people's emotions and to
Yes.
get them invested in the story that you're telling. Humans are emotional creatures. And
Mhm.
so we're going to gravitate towards compelling stories that make us feel something.
Yes.
And when we talk about responsible I think that this is so essential because, in all honesty, a big worry that I have sometimes on the subject of responsible AI is that it could get stale, I think,
Mhm.
especially even nowadays where responsible AI is the talk of the town. Responsible doesn't really have a great history of being this like sexy or flashy word. But if we're able to reframe the way that we talk about responsible AI through storytelling, be that through stories of our members at the Institute or even stories of people and organizations that may not have been really responsible on the out front, I think that can make a real impact. And of course, we see stories all the time in our favorite TV shows and our films or in books that we read. And I think that fictional stories also hold a lot of weight as well in how we develop and operate trustworthy AI systems. So yeah, all of that. I could go on and on about this topic, but
Mhm.
I think that stories have this ability to reach people where they're at instead of forcing people to buy into something that they don't quite understand or connect with. And so that's why I really believe that storytelling is crucial as it relates to talking about responsible AI.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that's a powerful medium because people do respond and relate to stories. So I think that's a great approach. Which
Yeah.
leads me because I did have another question about the regulate actual regulations. So with the emerging regulations like the EU AI Act and the Canada Data AI Act and the ones that Governor Newsom just passed and also vetoed here in California. The landscape for AI governance is becoming increasingly complex. So how does your institute help organizations navigate those regulations? And what are some key challenges you've encountered in this space with those regulations? Because like you said, regulations and AI governance is a little boring and storytelling does a great job of meeting people where they are, but how do you get them to adapt to the regulations?
This is definitely by far one of the biggest challenges that
Mhm.
our member organizations are facing. So much regulation is happening across the globe, especially in the United States. I feel like every week there's a new law that's being proposed in a different
Yes.
state. And so because of that, it could be difficult to keep up. And thankfully, the Responsible AI Institute has an expert policy team on staff that
Oh,
helps guide our member organizations to implement AI responsibly, which will help them with compliance down the road for a variety of different regulations that are coming out currently. And
mhm.
so we have these assessments that we go through with organizations that assess an organization's responsible AI maturity regarding their governance. And we also assess AI systems to ensure that they're being managed and operated responsibly as well. I think that the key challenge is how to implement recommendations that emerge from regulation and leading standards like the NIST RMF as well as ISO 42001
Mhm.
because some of this regulation that's in play, like the EU AI Act and others that are on standby, and then there's other regulations that are being proposed. As I mentioned before, it becomes very difficult to parse out as an organization what needs to be followed through on
Yeah.
and what we should hold off on with regards to how we're implementing AI. So, as an organization, ensuring that you're using and developing AI responsibly is an essential first step to avoid issues down the road. And I see it as this insurance policy that you're laying this foundation down to protect you from future regulations that may be coming down the road.
And you mentioned that you have these independent assessments and certifications for the different AI systems. How have these assessments impacted the trust and accountability of AI systems within organizations? And why are they becoming so essential in today's AI landscape?
Yeah, that's a really great question. AI assessments have become so essential, not only because what we just discussed before, but
Mhm.
also in the message that they send to stakeholders and clients
Right.
and customers and employees. You think about it, if an organization is going through an assessment to make sure that they're using AI responsibly, this sends a really big message to everyone within that organization's ecosystem because it's them coming forward and saying, hey, I'm taking accountability for some of my shortcomings with implementing AI responsibly or just implementing AI in general, rather. And having a leader, because lot of times in most cases we're working with the leadership teams at these organizations, having a leader come forward and say this builds an immense amount of trust, which is critical since, as I mentioned before, we're all trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
So working with a trustworthy organization, thinking of someone on the outside, it really helps you cut through the noise. And if
Mhm.
anything else, as I mentioned before, it's this insurance policy for what's to come. So assessments
Yeah.
prepare organizations as emerging AI regulation begins to take place.
I think that's great. And I know as a consumer, if I had a choice between using one company without any responsible AI implementation and those who are adhering to regulations, I'm going to go with the adhering to regulations to make sure I know that my data is protected, accurate. So that's super important.
Yeah, and it's really this approach of organization saying, "Hey, I don't have all of the answers, but I am either working with the Responsible AI Institute or I'm working in developing AI responsibly within our organization." It's this
Hmm.
understanding that, okay, I'm putting the work in now so that you, as our stakeholders, customers, whoever it is they're interacting with, can rest assured as AI continues to develop.
Yes, for sure. And I was just thinking, I spoke with someone a few months ago, and they were mentioning that different countries around the world are implementing the regulations differently. Like states, they don't really like the regulations that much, and they're trying not to have too many regulations that would as so they think would hinder innovation, while other countries are maybe quicker, like Europe, to adapt these regulations. How does the Responsible AI Institute facilitate collaboration between the industries and governments and academia for some successful outcomes in these partnerships?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We actually have some very exciting initiatives that are really just around the corner as we're going into 2025. We're in the early stages of building out roundtable discussions where
Good.
we will bring together leaders from a lot of those groups that you've discussed earlier from industry, government, and academia to discuss some of the biggest challenges we are facing with AI and responsible AI. And as I mentioned earlier, getting the opportunity to be in the same room with people, even if it's from people across different industries, is huge because we're all figuring this out. This technology is still in its infancy, and
Yeah.
there's still so much that we don't know. So, being able to come together and to learn from one another with what's working, what's not working, is going to allow us to move forward in a positive direction. At least I think so. Opportunities for collaboration and discussion, be they through panels, co-authored content, through podcast interviews like this, as well as
Mhm.
working groups. It really allows our members to deepen their knowledge as they implement AI into their organizations and even just more casual conversations through networking really
Mhm.
proves to be beneficial because it opens the door, it opens the gate to be able to have an open dialogue with, okay, what's happening or what are the challenges that you're facing? There is a certain level of vulnerability that's required with this, with the
Mm.
understanding that, of course, their organizations don't want to spill all of their secrets, so
Yeah.
to speak. But being able to get people in the same room is something that we have found has been very successful to just dig into the weeds as to what's happening across the globe. And
Yeah.
so we're really excited in the near future to be able to offer more opportunities like this for our member organizations.
Mm. Yes, collaboration is so big. Do you have an example of a successful outcome that you've seen through this collaboration?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are a variety of ecosystem partners that we've worked with on publishing articles and reports that have been very well received by the general public, or rather, that have been co-authored by a bunch of different leaders in the space. The one that comes to mind off the top of my head is earlier this year in June, we released a paper specifically on the impact of AI on sustainability. And
Mm.
that's a whole other
Yeah.
podcast conversation. But being able to bring together some of the leading minds on a variety of these topics, we have found to be very beneficial. But to my point earlier, there's still a lot of work to be done. And
Yeah.
so we're excited to be able to roll out these roundtable sessions through the Institute. And if we get the opportunity, maybe we could have this conversation a year from now and I could answer this question a little more readily and let you know, hey, these are things that are working and these are things that we're changing and adapting to, because I'm excited for the potential for these. We've been able to see it at a smaller level, some successful outcomes that have come out of it, and even just on a partnership level with our member organizations, working with them on assessments and other engagements, and being able to see our recommendations represented
Oh, yeah.
within an organizational structure has been very successful and very impactful. I'm excited to see the impact that members of the Institute are going to have on each other as well
Yeah.
as we build out these programs.
That's so true. I would love to do a follow-up interview to see
Hey,
how it's going.
let me know anytime.
All right. And looking ahead, what do you see as the most significant trend or developments in responsible AI? And how is the Institute preparing to address those changes and to be able to continue to support organizations in their responsible AI efforts?
Yeah, this is a really great question. I think we're going to see more and more organizations build out responsible AI programs. We're going to see organizations also conducting their own assessments as well, and also building out, and we're already seeing this as well, as building out responsible AI teams within their companies. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's very encouraging to see that that's a trend that seems to be growing. Responsible AI officers or chief AI officers are already and are going to become more and more prominent.
Hmm.
So, with that said, I think that it's essential that organizations build the infrastructure to be able to support these roles. In addition to that, Gen AI, of course, is going to continue to develop. And I think that if organizations lay the foundation for themselves with responsible AI now, they will
Yes.
be much better prepared when AGI becomes more prominent.
Hmm.
Because of course, people are already talking about AGI and oh, what's that going to look like? Of course,
Yeah.
some people are saying it's going to be around within the next year or two. Others are saying no, it won't be for another 10 to 20 years. But
Hmm.
regardless, I think that if organizations are able to lay that foundation, it's going to make them more prepared, as prepared as we can be when it comes to
Right.
AGI. There's things to that, like I said, that's a whole other conversation as well.
Yep.
The Responsible AI Institute ourselves, we're always evolving and growing and adapting to
Hmm.
best serve our members with the latest challenges that they're specifically facing. In a large part, it's staying up to date on emerging AI innovation and regulation, which is a lot of the work in of itself. But perhaps more importantly, it's developing a cohesive understanding on our end what our members need, what are their top concerns, what are their most pressing needs, and learning that and having a steady pulse on that, in addition to everything else that is going on, allows us to best address the changes that are happening in the ecosystem and being able to forecast those trends that we see around the corner.
That's so good. Yeah. And before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a couple of lighter questions so our audience can get to know you better. When you do step away from your work, what are some activities or hobbies that you're passionate about?
Yes, absolutely. This is a great question. I love performing. I have
Oh,
experience as an actor as well as a musician. doing theater and film. So that relates to your question earlier about storytelling and
Yeah.
it just being central to who I am and the work I do, creative projects I work on. I really love traveling and spending time with family and friends. And I think just in general, I'm a really big people person. I love meeting people. I love doing podcasts. I have a lot of experience with podcasts and really it's my love of human beings that's at the root of that. I love talking with people and hearing their stories and hearing what excites them about the work that they're doing, even if it's completely outside of the tech or AI industry. And it's something that maybe I have no knowledge of whatsoever. Being able to talk with people about that and their interests is something that really lights me up.
That's awesome. And if I can ask, do you sing or play an instrument? What kind of musician are
Yeah,
you?
so I'm not much of a singer. Primarily I'm a drummer. So
Okay.
I've been playing drums for about 22 years. And
Yeah.
then I play a little bit of guitar as well, but drums is
Mhm.
definitely my main instrument.
Nice. And what piece of advice would you give to AI professionals or organizations looking to integrate responsible AI practices into their work? What are some key steps or considerations they should keep in mind as they navigate this rapidly evolving field?
Yes, this is a great question. It's no surprise that I would advise AI professionals or organizations to prioritize trust and use or develop AI responsibly.
Mhm.
So, in order to integrate responsible AI practices into their work, I think that sometimes because it's a lot of work up front, there
Mhm.
are certainly a lot of steps that are involved to ensure that you're implementing AI responsibly. So,
Yeah.
I think because of that, sometimes it could be frustrating to people. And I think sometimes there could be this pushback like, oh, is this really worth our time?
Yeah.
But it's going to lay the foundation for years to come. And
Mhm.
some have this worry that responsible AI is going to stifle innovation, but I think it sets the stage for innovation.
Yeah.
It's like going to the gym and working out so that you're in the best shape to do the things that are important to you. These are just some considerations to keep in mind. And I think it's important for us to not get ahead of ourselves with regards to the extremes as well. I think that
Mm.
sometimes, especially those of us working in the AI space, sometimes we can have our heads in the clouds, or on the flip side, we can be very doom and gloom about where AI is heading. And
Yeah.
so I think there could be this middle ground that is very realistic that allows us to utilize AI as a tool while mitigating the potential risks at the same time. So I think to answer your question, I think that it's what's really important is to just lay the groundwork for that foundation. And that's really going to set up members or rather organizations for success down the road.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think that's great advice. And also, like you mentioned earlier, it builds trust with your vendors and customers. So it makes total sense to do this first. And then you can figure out how to innovate within those guidelines. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us today and for sharing your valuable insights. It's been such a pleasure talking with you and learning about how you foster responsible AI practices and guiding organizations through those complexities of AI governance. So I appreciate you joining us and thank you for coming on.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for to AI News as well. And yeah, this
Oh,
was
yeah.
great. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, me too. Yeah, thank you. And for more information about Responsible AI Institute, you can visit their website, responsible.ai. Keeping you connected to tomorrow. Today, this is Alicia with AInews.com.